They said it was too late, that the best years were behind him. But he wasn't done. He was just getting dangerous. This podcast isn't for the overnight success stories. It's for the ones who are still in the middle of the damn fight. The late bloomers, the blue-collar visionaries, the people who refuse to settle. This isn't a comeback. It's a fucking uprising.
Hey, welcome back everyone to Electrician to Entrepreneur. This week I'm pulling back the curtain on my own financial struggles to show you why building a strong foundation is so critical. I've learned the same focus on discipline and problem solving that made me successful as a tradesman is what it's going to take to fix my own budget. In this episode, I'll walk you through my own messy financial roadmap, show you how I'm applying the same principles that I use in the job to my personal life. And we're going to get real about money and what it takes to build a runway to a new life. So this past week, I'm just gonna be straight up honest right off the bat with this particular episode. This is not a subject I enjoy. I will say that a lot of the videos that I've been watching and a lot of the things that I've been reading says that, you know, the true necessity for any successful business person is getting your mind right with money. And there's a couple of aspects with that that we really need, that you need to understand, and that I'm trying desperately to understand. One is you know, not just being okay or figuring out and learning how to appropriately manage your money, but we need to get beyond the typical the typical misconceptions that we've all been taught through conditioning and so on throughout our lives. So and basically the idea is that money is not evil. It's not okay to it is okay to want money. It is okay to to do what you can to make more money. It's important to understand these things as this is the key in which you will begin to accept, which is what I'm having trouble doing, accept the responsibility of managing your money more appropriately. So this week, really, I've been working on this plan, and working on solidifying my plan, I should say. I have a plan for managing my finances right now, and in a way that's efficient for me. And I think that's important too, is that not every plan works for every individual. You have to figure out what's efficient for you, what works best for you. The key here is not to over leverage yourself, which is, I think, one of the most common problems that you see with finances today. I don't think that that's necessarily something that is, the lower or middle class struggles with specifically. I think that it doesn't matter how much money you make or how much money you have in the bank. Some people fall into the trap of over leveraging themselves rather easily. And it is a very easy thing to do. So the real trick is, of course, you have a plan that works for you, that makes it easier for you to spend the time that you need to spend going over your finances, getting them right, and keeping them right, and not allowing yourself to slip into into these situations in which you may over leverage yourself financially. So the goal for me is, for those that are new to the show, the goal is by January 1st, I'm going to put behind me my W-2 job, and at that point, hopefully have a business running where I will be making enough money to replace that income. To understand that is to understand finances. Before we can commit to any particular plan, to go forward or to achieve that goal, we have to commit to a financial plan specifically. And committing to a plan takes quite a bit of discipline. Um, so, and I think that for a lot of people, this may be the sticking point. The real trouble is that discipline in managing your finances appropriately. So the goal for me is that I need to, by January 1st, not only have come up with a way to replace my income, but I also need to have built up a 3-month safety net. And realistically, if you don't have money in your savings, you are doing a very poor job of managing your money. I say this because I have no money in my savings. This is my struggle. This is the big thing that I'm going to have to get over very quickly, because time is, of the essence. We are now, looking at just over 3.5 months to January 1st. So time is of the essence to, a 3-month safety net. That might be a tall order at this point. I don't think actually we'll have to make some strategic moves in order to figure that out. So, and there's a lot of reasons why there's the challenges come up, but for the most recent, of course, is while working on putting my finances together and everything, you have the unescapable expenses that come up from time to time. This is why having a safety net is so important, because we don't know when these unexpected expenses will come up. Sometimes it may be an expected expense, but you just haven't been able to put the money aside for it. Having a safety net really keeps us from falling into that mistake of, really kind of falling into that trap where that money suddenly is gone from your budget, and you know you're now forced to have to figure out a way to recover from it. So the real thing here is and I think that it's very important to understand um, the the idea behind a safety net it isn't about specifically catching things that happen that you weren't expecting. It's not, the entire idea behind all the cliches you hear about managing finances. The idea is that you want to create a system in which money does not stress you out. You want to make it as easy a subject as possible for you to think about. Where's my money going? That's a stressful question to answer if you don't have control over your money. What do I do when my car breaks down? That's a very stressful subject to approach when you don't have a safety net. What about, tree fell through the roof? Insurance will cover it, the repairs. However, I have no place to stay right now, and insurance doesn't cover rehoming. So what are you going to do? Right? And we don't want to be stressed out in these moments. We have bigger problems to worry about. The car broke down. I need to get that fixed. I need that car. What are my backup plans here? And not just what are my backup plans in dealing with the car, but this expense. Now I have to spend this money on getting the car fixed. What am I going to do? To handle that? If I don't have the safety net, it becomes a very, very stressful subject. Now, it's true that a safety net is very easily dipped into. That's part one of being disciplined and handling your money. It's also true that when these unexpected costs happen, that now you have to work on replenishing that, which means taking some effort to look at your budget and figuring it out. You shouldn't have to look at your budget though and go, "Oh my God, I gotta do this now." The idea not just for me to approach my finances so that I can get out by January 1st. The idea is that I need to be able to approach my finances, not just my, and I'm talking about my personal finances now, but I don't need to just get a hold of my personal finances for the sake of getting out at the end of the year. I need to do it so that I can look at my finances without going, geez, what am I going to do? And in addition to all of that, I need to know where my money's going to go, or I need to know where the money goes for the business. So, we spent $1,000 last week on XYZ for this client. Well, okay, so hold on a minute. What does that mean? XYZ, so, in a day we spent $1,000 and it's all on promotional items. Promotional. Well, what specifically? Because I need to know. I mean, if you're taking a client out to dinner, that's a perfectly good excuse to spend money. If you are buying a client flowers before you show up, well, tell me, why did you buy flowers for that client? Did you know that client was somebody that would appreciate receiving flowers? Did you do the research to know that ahead of time? It's important to understand these things, because if we're spending money for the sake of boosting business or for streamlining a process, we should be able to look back at that money that was spent and determine if it was spent on something that works or not. And it's not a matter of it's a matter of, first, accountability. We need to make sure that we're not just throwing money away frivolously. I mean, you don't want an employee, say, that is buying $50 worth of lunches every week just to keep himself fed so that he doesn't have to freaking spend the money himself. If he's buying lunch for a client, though, every one of those days, then please spend 100, spend 200, spend 1,000. It needs to be a method. The money spent needs to be done so in a way that makes sense for the business. If your money isn't working for you, and so this is another important understanding, but if your money isn't working for you, then it's working against you. I need to be able to start looking at money more from a perspective of somebody that understands it and it can appreciate what it's good for. I mean, money should be a tool, right? We should be using money to help ourselves to become to find these lives in which we are living happier, peaceful lives, and we need to use this tool to increase business. And I mean, embracing it means understanding how you can use money to further your design. So that if your entire principle, if everything that you're doing is set to helping others, then you need to have control over your money and embrace your money as a tool that can help others. Right? If your goal is to build a very successful multi-billion-dollar company, well, you need to take the money that you have now, understand how to use it as a tool to help build that business from where you are now. If your goal is to just simply live your life as it is now, then understand that money needs to be the tool that you use to keep you where you are, to make sure that you can sustain that life no matter what happens. And it's a tool that you need to use so that you can make sure that after you reach retirement age, you will continue to be able to live that life without any worry and without any stress. And I'm telling you, people don't take money seriously enough, and they either approach it with anger or fear, I'm saying this from experience. It's anger or fear or even just a complete lackluster attitude, which is really, that was my biggest problem as an electrician. Just really don't care. Every cent spent by Friday, I get my paycheck on Friday. Every cent of it's spent by Thursday. So it's, it maintains a particular way of life for just so long. But it certainly doesn't account for when the shit hits the fan. The biggest trick, of course, is for me is really kind of changing this mindset that I had as an electrician, which is to just simply live paycheck to paycheck. Not every electrician, not every blue collar worker. I'm sure there's plenty of people watching that don't have this problem, but this is my problem, and it is a common problem. You live paycheck to paycheck without any regard for the future, and realistically, I need to change that mindset to one of being a business owner. And I don't want you to get that confused with becoming greedy. It really has, I think that it's very important to understand that my end goals at the end of the freaking, when I reach where I plan on going with my life, my goal isn't to have accumulated so much wealth that I can go and do anything I want, and I can go to Monaco and gamble on on I don't want any of that stuff. That's not I realized in trying to set up when I decided I needed a new life, that I can't keep doing what I've been doing, and that and decided that this is the direction I wanted to go in. One of the things that and episode 1, I'll point back to that. I talk about the reason why. So the reason why is that I found that my passion is always been kind of really helping others, helping other people. I've always been good at that, and it's something that I really enjoy doing. I really enjoy seeing. I enjoy seeing when people begin to understand something that they didn't understand. That's probably one of my biggest highs with helping people is kind of giving them that aha moment. But when I think of myself in a place of massive abundance, I think, well, then maybe it's not enough for me. I mean, what I want, of course, is I want to live a life where I can go on vacations. I mean, I'm not looking, like I said, I don't plan on going to gamble on the high Riviera. I don't, but I would, it would be nice to be able to take 1 or 2 cruises a year, or go camping 3 or 4 times during the summer, maybe every other weekend during the summer. I mean, there's plenty of people that, own seasonal campsites. They go every weekend. That sounds like a freaking great idea to me. I'd love to do that. I love the idea of sitting by a fire. But you have to earn that kind of relaxation, and so that's really the mission, was to find my financial freedom enough to be able to do that as often as I wanted to be able to do that, not to have to spend 6 months planning it. And so that's the idea behind finding financial freedom, is to be able to make those decisions. What do we want to do this weekend? We want to go to New Hampshire, or we want to go. There's this great new cruise I want to try out in 2 months. I can start booking that now, and in 2 months we can take a week and go, or even 5 days or 3 days. I don't know, depending on what kind of cruise you enjoy. But the point is, wouldn't it be nice to be able to just say, okay, I want to go do that? And I mean, so there is some planning that has to be involved in spending, time away from work. Of course, you need to be able to afford to, but it shouldn't be stressful. And I think that's where financial freedom helps us. Is it takes if we have built enough wealth in our lives that we can be financially free, then we no longer have to look at how we're going to be able to afford that car, that the new car that we have to get. Our old car is no good. We need a new car. Don't want to stress over how we're going to do that. I don't want to stress over, I'd like to go away next weekend and just get away from it all. I mean, I don't need to spend, $10,000 on a trip for a weekend either, right? I can probably go away for a weekend and spend less than freaking, $500 or $600 if I do it right, and depending on where I go. But, the idea is to take the stress away from it. We don't, when we have to live our lives in this for the sake of looking for an escape, right? We need, I want to go away. I can't afford to. Everything's so goddamn stressful. I just need to go away. And I'm going to run away to this place for however many days to get away from my life. I think maybe what we need to do is change our mindset from, I'm not looking to get away from my life or get away from it all. I'm looking to actually append this nice experience to my already decent life. That's financial freedom. When you already feel okay about your life, that you don't need to escape from it, and that when you go away, you're adding something nice to your life. So so when it comes to building the business and doing all these things, I realize, of course, that the idea here is that I don't want to become so rich that I can just freaking do whatever I want whenever I want, and all that money just sits in the bank when I'm not doing stuff. I got to a point where I needed to make a massive change in my life to find this financial freedom, to reduce the amount of stress that's in my life every day, whether it be from finances or having to answer to somebody I don't necessarily agree with. The things, all these things that I allowed, needed to, of course, one of the biggest things is I needed to understand better mindset and better emotional control. Not everything's about me. That's a big one to learn. But, beyond all those things, I needed to, I think that when you decide that you're going to find this kind of freedom in everything, I think a lot of people will kind of just settle on so when I find this freedom, this is where I'm at. It doesn't necessarily speak to greed. It's about reducing the amount of stress in their lives and creating something, creating a baseline for happiness. For me, I realized that if I create this kind of abundance where I can do all these things, and in doing so, I'm removing myself from a situation where I'm very unhappy. So when I reach that point where I can be very happy, wouldn't it make me that much more happy if I can teach other people how to do the same thing? And there are a ton of different ways. Maybe I love the idea that maybe I run into 10 people over the course of a couple of years, and each one of them has a dream. Maybe one has a dream to open a restaurant. Another one has a dream to run a cab company. God knows there's a million freaking, everybody's got a dream. Everybody's got an idea. They want to do this, they want to do that. And what's funny is I just realized recently I'm not unique to this idea, but if I can help somebody else achieve their dream, make it easier for them so that they don't have to go through what I'm going to go through or what I've already gone through, then wouldn't it have all been worth it? And wouldn't that make each vacation I go on that much more sweet? Wouldn't it make the new car I buy that much more exciting to drive? I mean, doesn't it just, the idea of helping people when you find abundance in things and you realize that you can use that as a tool to help others, not just yourself, doesn't that, truly make your life a little easier to live? And so, and I realize, we're now almost 30 minutes in. I realize I'm not really touching upon the struggles of my own finances so much as that I'm really just kind of, I think I really just kind of gone off on a whole tangent to talk about why it's so important to figure these, to figure out or to learn to enjoy looking at your money as opposed to looking at it with such disdain. I think one of the greatest stressors to finances is, of course, and I bet this is probably the most common thing that everybody comes across. And it, ironically, this is something I'm just spitballing this. It's not something that I've seen anybody talk about, but I'm willing to bet you that one of the most common stressors for people when they look at their money is the oh, jeez, man, I got to do a better job. I suck at this. I think that's what I do. And if we're going to learn anything along this journey, one of the biggest things, I'm going to lean in here. One of the biggest things that we're going to have to learn on this journey is every time we beat ourselves up, it doesn't matter why. Every time we beat ourselves up, we make it harder to realize our goals. The reason for that is because once you start to talk about yourself negatively, you begin to turn that into a I'm not good enough conversation. I think even people that seem a lot more confident in their lives can do this easily, run into this scenario easily, where they begin to ask themselves if I'm worthy. And this is, I think, one of the biggest problems with finances is when you're not sticking to your plan and you're stressing out over the money. Every time you look at that, at the ledger, every time you look at your spreadsheet or whatever, however you manage your money, and you stress out about it, the number one thing you're asking yourself is if you're good enough to manage your finances towards happiness. It's understandable because money is probably the one thing that we all take so damn seriously, that we all get so hung up about. And this is what's going to separate me from David Ramsey. He's got a very interesting approach in which he basically tells you you're an idiot when you're being an idiot. And so I want to make a distinction here. When I say that you need to get away from negative, from self-negative talk, and this is a conversation that has been ongoing for years. It's an especially important one, with the mental health epidemic that we're facing these days. Approaching self-negative talk needs to be, we need to approach the subject of that and understanding that what we're not doing is we're not saying that you shouldn't hold yourself accountable. What we are saying is that stop saying, I fucked that up. Jesus Christ, I'm no good at this stuff. I can't do it. How am I ever going to get better? How am I ever going to be able to do that? How am I ever going to be? You can't. That's self-negative talk. Instead, you can be like, well, that was a mistake. Shouldn't have done that. But now I know I shouldn't have done that. I need to be more careful going forward. In fact, I will be more careful going forward. Don't even raise it up as a possibility. Turn your accountability into a positive. Say, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have spent that money on that thing. Next time I'm not going to do that. And, and be real with yourself. But don't turn it into I mean, this is the fourth week in a row that I freaking screwed up and spent money on dinner when I should have just stayed at home. And therefore, I mean, if I can so easily succumb to that, then I must not be good at this. I'm going to need somebody else to watch my money. I'm going to need somebody else's help. It's understandable to know what your weaknesses are for sure. But asking other people for help is always a good thing. I mean, you should never discount the power of asking for help. People are willing to help if you ask, and the worst thing that you'll ever get is a no. And I mean, what's the big deal if you get the no? But when it comes to finances, don't look for somebody to come rescue you. Instead, the help should probably come in the form of, well, I see you're $5,000 in debt, but so instead of giving you $5,000, I'm going to show you how you can turn that around and have $5,000 in savings. That would be appropriate help. And that turns a negative into a positive. And it's most definitely the way we should be approaching finances, is looking not just in how we're making mistakes, but how we can improve upon them. If something is a mistake, then we do need to identify the mistake, embrace the mistake as something that we can undo, and then get beyond that. So this is most definitely one of the things that I'm probably struggling with the most right now, is not beating myself up. Because if you're going through anything similar to what I am, I hope maybe you can see how I'm turning it into a positive. I'm going to turn my financial woes around. And if you are struggling even harder than I am, maybe this is the opportunity for you to begin to understand how you need to embrace a different mindset in order to get through that. I want to take, excuse me, I want to take a couple steps back in time. So, a little over 11 years ago, Julie and I, happily married, well, mostly happily married. Liam is a young tyke of 10 years old. I think it was after his 10th birthday. But at any rate, Liam's 10. Julie and I were living a relatively happy life. I had found success in becoming an electrician, and we found success in putting money away. Finally worked up enough money that we could afford the first-time home buyer's down payment, and we began looking for a house. And we, and then we settled on this house, and we moved into this house, and everything seemed okay. In a lot of ways, I approached the entire situation like I found success, and now I should be able to start living that life of success. And here's an important take on this. First of all, when you find success, that is to say, you found a level of success that you were hoping for, you reached your goal. Understand what living a life of success in that light looks like. This is something I didn't understand. Just because you're making a certain amount of money each week does not mean you can just go throwing it around at whatever you want to throw it at. Maybe you think, well, okay, so I'm making all this extra money that I wasn't making before. I'm going to throw all this money into investments. It sounds great. Wisdom isn't necessarily in knowing that you need to save money. Wisdom is understanding how to save money and still manage your finances. Every different part of managing your finances, there's savings, right? You need to have a good savings. You need to, of course, take care of all of your necessary expenses. You need to make sure that that you're fed, um, which fits in with the necessary expenses, and then and you need to make sure that you're planning ahead for your retirement. So having a savings, that's more about what I mean by that is investing your money into or having a safety net. I'm sorry, that's what I meant. Having a savings is more about having a safety net. Having actually planning for retirement, that's a different subject in and of itself. So there's two different types of savings, right? There's a savings for your retirement, and then there's a savings to keep you out of trouble. And I don't think that your safety net savings is about hitting a particular dollar amount and then calling it a day. You're going to end up having to maintain that because shit happens all the time. This is unavoidable. If you think that you're going to get away with shit never happening to you, I'm sorry. This is your rude awakening right now. Life happens, so your safety net is always going to have to be adjusted, which means that that's a necessary expense as well. So there's there are all these necessary nuances to your savings. So when you just haphazardly throw all this money into investments, yeah, I mean on paper that looks great and it sounds great, but did you pay the electric bill? Don't be surprised when they turn the electricity off next month. And so you go to get your money back from that savings. So now you're going to have to pay all this money for, brokerage fees and blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, you can't just move money around like it's water. You have to do it with intention, right? So this is that's why I find this subject to be so important, is I think that it's easy to get caught into this idea that we can just haphazardly do what we need to do with the money in order to achieve the things that we want to achieve. But I don't think that, there's enough intention put in behind every move that we're making there. And doing things with intention is the secret to success. And it's certainly how you manage to create discipline behind it. So, of course, for me, when I bought the house and found this level of, I finally bought a house. My whole life I never had a house. Now I got a house. I live in a house. Yay. I've successfully, moved my wife and my son into a house. He's a lot closer to school, so he can continue to go to, he was going to school out of district, but now he can, he's closer to school, so it's easier for him to go to school. We're closer to the in-laws, which is an important fact for the wife. And we got a nice big yard. And for me, that also meant I can have a dog for the first time in my life. So we went out and got a dog. I think within the first 9 months, finally went out and got a dog. I can host parties because I'm kind of a social butterfly, so I love the idea of hosting parties. And not something Julie's necessarily comfortable with, but that's okay. We worked around it. And, so at any rate, this for me meant that I'd found a level of success, and that also, and with that level of success, and of course, Julie had always been managing the finances anyway. So I don't have to worry about what I spend anymore. I'm not racking up credit card debt, mind you. I was spending money that was directly right out of my, right out of the bank account. So I'm not racking up debt. Thought it was okay. I can go spend all that money. Julie's managing the finances. You can imagine how stressful that started, how stressful that became. Before reaching a level of success, it was we need to buckle down, or, hunker down, take care, put our money to good use, save money here, pay off that bill, try to knock down that debt, work on all these things. I mean, we worked our asses off to get that loan for the house, to finance all this stuff. And when you remove that goal, remove that plan, it was easy for me to go, it's okay. Of course I can go out again tonight. I know I went out the last 3 nights in a row. Of course I can go out again tonight. Spend another $200 at the bar between food, drinks, buying drinks for my buddies. I'm successful now. I can do it. It's stupid. It's fucking stupid. Right? Now, I recognize that now. Right? Live and learn, I guess. So this is, and I'm not sure how many, if I mentioned this on the podcast yet. So there may be a good, decent amount of people that are not aware, but Julie and I are divorced. We finally reached a level of fuck this is not working. And, I'll be honest, it was me. Between my careless attitude about spending money and putting all that stress on her in order to pay the bills. And then, of course, the incessant amount of drinking that I was doing. And then I was bringing home work stress. With all those things combined, I pushed her as far away as you can imagine. I didn't spend the appropriate amount of time with my son. That's another big regret. But, the fact of the matter is, and I won't regret the fact that I had a great time, but I do regret the pain that it inflicted on others, especially Julie and my son. I was fortunate enough, I was fortunate enough that after realizing and beginning to hold myself accountable for my mistakes, that Julie hadn't lost that love for me and was willing to take me back. But, now we're working with a different set of cards. So that way of living has to change, right? Now, with all of my credit card debt, with the divorce, I got rid of all of it. I actually had to pay a pretty huge settlement with one creditor last year just to get rid of that. And I zeroed out all of my debt, and which was fantastic. Now, in the process, again, for those that don't know, this last year and a half has been leading up to this exit plan from my W-2, but the last year and a half has been changing my life to become this entrepreneur that I envisioned myself being. And at that point, early this year, I made a decision to get a credit card with a full intention and plan on keeping the balance as low as possible, paying absolutely no interest on it, and getting a cashback reward. So I planned on using my money, and this is about as basic as you can go when it comes to making your money work for you. If you can be disciplined with your credit cards, you can make money from them, right? So, and I'm also a very, very big proponent of the idea that you don't use your ATM card for anything, for security reasons, because banks get hacked into all the time. People love to, identity theft and all that stuff. And yeah, these banks are culpable for all these things, but your credit card still does the identity theft stuff as well. And at the end of the day, Um, they probably watched actually even harder because credit debt, credit card debt is. I mean, I'd call that a pandemic in and of itself, right? Um, so, and if you're going, if the bank that issues you the credit card is willing to attach a cash back reward, or for those that may fly all over the place, you get miles. Um, I think there's a couple of credit cards that you can attach that to, various different discounts or whatever towards cruises. I mean, if you're every time you spend money, you can make money back from that, then I'm a proponent of that. But you have to make sure that when you're spending the money that if it's spent through a credit card, that you're paying that off as fast as you're spending it. The true key to having a smart credit card, right? To owning a credit card in a smart way is to have a balance of between $50 and $100. If for you have a $1,000 credit card, you probably want a balance of no more than $50. You don't want it to be much less. And I'll tell you why here in a second. But and you want to have, for the sake of having, and there are experts out there that'll say that having a good credit score is a scam to create more. Working towards a good credit score is a scam to further create debt. You should never leverage yourself out to banks and so on and owe money to anyone. I agree to a certain point, but there are times when in life that we're going to have to finance something. And you just have to have a very smart plan in place when you do that, and you have to be disciplined enough to stick to the fucking plan, right? So the idea behind having a credit card with a balance of $50 and say, a credit limit of $1,000, you have a $50 debt to $1,000 credit ratio. This looks fantastic to the credit reporting agencies. And in addition to, so now I'm still on the mortgage for the house. So I have that going for me. This is fantastic. Now after 10 years, we have more than $50,000 of equity in the house. I, in addition to that, I've got my truck loan that is, the truck was 80% paid for. So I financed 20% of it. Not even. More like 10 to 15% I financed on the truck. And no, I take that back. 20% is about accurate. So I financed 20% of the truck, but now it's been 3 years and I paid off more than half of that. Right. So now trucks, cars, depreciating value, and everything like that. There's really but that's not the point. I financed, close to $20,000. I've now got that down to right around $10,000. So that's a $10,000 debt to $20,000 ratio. So and then you continue to look at this with no missed payments. Mortgage is paid on time. And then with the credit cards, I pay them off every week, or I was. We pay those off every week. We keep them at a low balance. We continue to have a low credit or low debt to credit ratio. And so doing that will boost your score up. Right now, my score is at 7. I don't know what it is specifically right this moment today. I haven't looked at it in over a week. But last time I looked at it, it was at 760. I'm willing to bet that it's probably somewhere around 730, 720 to 730, which is that's a pretty good credit score, right? Below 700, I think is fair. the 700 to 800 is good, and then anything over 800 is excellent, or something like that, or over 850 is excellent, depending on the agency. I don't remember what those numbers are off the top of my head, so don't, I'm sure somebody will correct me somewhere. But this is why I did the credit cards, why it was so important to do the credit cards. But the problem is, it's, first of all, people pleasing. And I'm sure you can tell that since my ultimate goal is to help other people, that I'm probably a people pleaser. Well, yeah, I'm a people pleaser. And the issue with being a people pleaser when you're trying to get your finances under control is you can easily over leverage yourself for the sake of helping someone else out. When I should have said no to $1,000 loan to someone, I didn't. I wanted to keep that person happy. And the problem wasn't so much the lend. I mean, I had it to lend. It's okay. The problem is that I did not create a plan for how I would pay that back off, because that loan that came off of my credit card. I didn't have $1,000 sitting in the bank, So I made a loan that came out of my credit card. I basically leveraged my own debt to help someone else. And because I didn't have a plan for paying that back based on how I'm getting paid back, it was easy to start snowballing. Then I began to over leverage myself. So now I tried really, really, really hard to get back to, but no, I need to get this thing. I need to get that thing. Just as I'm about ready to clear that debt off, I got to go on vacation. Now, if I hadn't had that debt, I would have been able to save the money and I would have paid cash for the vacation. It is what it is. But now I want to go on vacation, and there's no going back. I'm going on vacation. That is a bad mindset, by the way. You have to sometimes turn around and say, okay, well, that's out. I guess we're going to have to accept that that's just not going to happen. That's not in the cards. It's fine. You will recover. You will survive, but again, not only that, but on top of that, I want to make sure Julie's happy. She wants to go on vacation really bad. So we're going on vacation, but I have to finance it. And I got a second card about that same time. So now finance that, and we end up way out of control. So the thing is, where this lands me is this, and I know we're coming up on an hour, and I really don't want to go too far over. So what this all ends up running into is that I over leveraged myself way too much when I was beginning to have a financial plan that made sense. And one of the things that makes over leveraging easy is, of course, not paying attention, not looking at the finances every day, not paying attention, or at the very least once a week. Make sure that your money, make sure you understand where your money's going, how to stop bleeding on things that don't matter. And I wasn't doing any of that. And this is in the situation I'm in now. I probably won't be able to have a safety net in place on just my current income by the end of the year. So not only do I need to replace my income, but which is a tough enough challenge. Now I also need to figure out a way to start creating an income now that replaces this income, my W-2 income. I need to have that now so that I can get that money, have that safety net come January 1st. this is it's quite a quandary. And so this is where we're at, in our journeyman to or electrician rather to entrepreneur journey. This is where we're at. So the big lesson, we need to understand. I need to understand that I have to look at money every day now. I have one of the things I plan on doing is, of course, so every day I have to buy my lunch. And I buy my lunch and then I buy my dinner. And that I don't spend a ton of money on it, but still it's money spent that I don't have to spend. I mean, if we're buying food for the house, that's where my meals should be coming from, is from the house, not from some, fast food joint. And it's not healthy anyway. When you don't have control over how a meal is prepared, you can't say as to how healthy your food is going to be. I don't care where you're eating. I don't care if you're eating in one of those fancy restaurants in New York City where you sit on the floor eating kale with a pair of chopsticks, freaking right from the floor itself. Oh, we didn't have to wash any dishes. Yeah, fuck you. I don't care. That food is still, you did not prepare that food. So you still can't say with an absolute certainty that you're eating healthy food. And by the way, I question just how fucking healthy kale can be. Any rate, I digress. But it's so that's step one. Stop eating out. Right? It's fucking. That was one plan. I'm going to stop eating out, stop buying breakfast, or stop buying lunch rather, and stop buying freaking dinner from somewhere else. And I can become healthier if I start eating whole foods at home, and I start doing meal prep. So the idea, and starting with today, and today's Sunday, today I was supposed to begin doing meal prep and create my meals, not just for dinner, because I work, dinner is my lunch, realistically, but not just for my dinner, but also my breakfast, which is your lunch, every day. I should not be getting that from anywhere but from my refrigerator. And so that was plan one. That realistically, that would save me probably about $150 a week. That's a nice step take right there. I'm going to quit smoking. That's a most definite must. That's, that's roughly, was that 12? It's probably I don't know, somewhere around $100 a week that I could save. So I got to quit smoking. And that's also get healthier. This is a business mindset. This is a successful mindset. What I'm doing for you right now, what I'm doing for me right now. This is what a successful mindset looks like. What are we doing wrong? And how do we fix it? So then the other plan is, and now this is not something I'm going to suggest that just anybody do. Please understand where your money goes every minute or every day. But what I plan on doing to pay my debt off is that every extra cent that I have each week goes into the credit cards. So I'll stop using the credit cards altogether. And actually, I'm probably I think after I'm done with recording, I'm going to take everything out of my wallet that isn't my bank card and put it, and put it in a nice safe place so that I stop using my credit cards. And then I can begin to work solely on paying off the credit cards, get them back down to a balance of around $50 to $100 each. And I only have 2 credit cards. I will not take out a third without canceling one of the ones that I have now. I will not do that. I will not continue to over leverage myself that way. And so that's the plan going forward. is to do those things. And hopefully by January 1st, I will have reduced my debt to zero and have some semblance of a safety net in place. I hope also by January 1st to have a decent enough business plan put together that I may be able to get a small business loan. But we're going to continue to investigate that, and I'll continue to talk about that stuff on the podcast coming as we go along. But I very much want. We need to kind of look at this like this, okay? Everything that has happened up to now has been about teaching, okay? And I'm not talking about everything that I'm saying is teaching you. I mean, everything that has happened to me up to this point has been about teaching me how to be better at doing whatever it is I need to do. And in this case, all of my financial troubles, which I'm solely responsible for, all of those financial troubles and everything is teaching me now to be a lot more accountable of every cent every day, period. There is no excuse. And in order to find a way to do this successfully and to do this correctly, we have to very much understand that we need to be right with money. So that is to say, stop freaking looking at money as this necessary evil or as something, the haves versus the have-nots. I promise you this, the have-nots, okay, they have a choice. And I don't mean to say that everybody, it's easy for everybody, but you know what? Everybody's given them, everybody has their own set of circumstances in which they have to figure things out. It is not my responsibility to dig you out of a hole or to pay for your every expense. Period. It is not. I don't care what, you can make this a freaking socialist country all you want. I will not pay anyone to live, even though my tax dollars partially do that now. But my point is that I will not, it is not my responsibility. It is not my neighbor's responsibility to take care of me. It is not some guy in Texas' responsibility to take care of me. And everybody, so everybody's circumstances are different and they all, you know what? A lot of them suck. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that life is hard. But I didn't choose that for you. Why is it my responsibility? And I promise you that if you turned around and you suddenly had $50 in your pocket and I asked you for $10 to have a freaking Happy Meal, you would say, no, fuck you. I need this $50. I have bills to pay. So it is our responsibility to take care of our finances, everybody individually. And yes, I want to help other people, but where my biggest lesson, my biggest help is going to be for these other people is not necessarily the finances. I'll give you some seed money to get your business and your idea off the ground. I'm happy to do that as long as you accept help in how to run a business, help in managing finances, help in learning how to find the appropriate help. I'm not just going to dump money in somebody's lap. I'm going to help them get better at doing the things, at becoming the person they want to become. That's the goal. That's the goal behind this podcast. My hope is that in my own, my own personal journey to becoming a better human being, I'm hoping that maybe this inspires somebody else to become a better human being. Whatever that means. Everybody has a different journey, and everybody's journey is defined differently. So success for me doesn't necessarily mean success for you. And we all need to understand that about each other. So with all that said, we do have a financial roadmap going forward. Everything needs to be adaptable. We all need to learn how to adapt to whatever may happen, in order to find some semblance of not just success, but peace. If you constantly worry about money, how can you be peaceful? And if you don't worry about money at all, that is to say, you don't pay attention at all, I promise you, you will wake up one day really stressed out. So, all that being said, I kind of want to. I'm gonna close out by teasing a little bit of an aha moment that happened over the past week. Yes, finances. Well. So the subject matter for this episode, we decided on this weeks ago. I really kind of laid out everything through this episode before I did my first episode, and so the subject matter for this, that in dealing with, in kind of trying to come up with the actual outline for the show this past week, it's forced me to kind of deal with my finances head on, which is a good thing because, from this week forward, we're going to be approaching finances in a much different way. And we're going, because there is no way, two ways about it. We're going to reach our goal. I'm not breaking any promises to myself. That's those days are over. And accountability and discipline, and confidence comes from not breaking promises. If you make a promise to yourself that you're going to do something and you keep that promise, you become more confident. Over time, that leads to true confidence. One thing I struggle with is having confidence. So we're going to go forward, we're working on our confidence by achieving our goals. And I promise you this, January 1st, I will be independent. I will not be working for any major corporation anymore. And I will not be going to work for any for another electrical contractor, not in the same fashion that I have been. We will be setting up, we're going to be working on a backup plan in case running a business isn't in the cards for January 1st. But I promise you that I am not giving up, and we will be successful. And we will be financially independent by January 1st, whatever that means. So, that being said, the other aha moment that I had this week, and this was really the bigger one and the reason why I started on this particular rant or ramble, the other aha moment was as we finally discovered and understand what our mission is. The first step in financial freedom and the first business will be consulting. I know I said last week that I wouldn't be doing any consulting and it wouldn't make sense, but we found a way to do it that does make sense. So we're going to be doing a bunch of research into the market, in terms of need and so on. But it looks like a really great opportunity, and we're going to talk about that more. And I'm going to be incorporating a lot of what that business is into the podcast going forward. I think that it will be an incredibly useful conversation point for homeowners and prospective investors as we go forward. So, in future podcast episodes, probably starting with next week's, we'll be talking a little bit about about what that electrical consulting looks like and how it can help you or help other investors out there. And so, that being said, we're gonna start to wrap this up now. I want to tell you a little. First of all, Thank you again. I'll thank you every week. I will continue to thank you until the day I die for the attention that you give me. If you are watching this podcast, I sincerely hope that it has brought some sort of inspiration to you in making the changes that make sense in your life to find success, whatever that means to you. And with those things being said, next week, I hope you will join me, and I hope I can thank you again next week for joining me, where we'll get into, we're going to take a deep dive into building unshakable habits, and the understanding between good and bad habits, and really kind of go over how I struggle with discipline and how we can together build better discipline in our lives through developing these habits. And I really hope to have you along for that journey. So without further ado, I want to thank you all again very much for tuning in and watching. And I hope to see you again next week. Thank you. Have a great week. Bye-bye.